Let me share with you what I prepared first, which I believe also of God. Lost and found. Lost and found. It's all about finding those who are lost, isn't it? How many of you have lost something that is very precious to you, very valuable to you? Huh? You've lost, like what? Money, right? Money. Wallet, very common. Now smartphone, right? Yeah? You should put tissue paper to chop your seat. Don't put smartphone to chop seats. Huh? People take away. How many of you as parents here, have you lost your child before? Huh? Our children when younger, they had to run away, right? Where's my child? Where's my child? I remember years ago, I was on holiday in South Korea. And we're just resting because a huge shopping mall. So we're just resting, and then suddenly we heard someone shouting, distant voice. And then it got louder and louder because he was running towards our direction and ran past us. Just one word, keep shouting that word. And I look at that person, it must be a parent looking for a lost child. You know, every few minutes, the loudspeaker will say, you know, parents, please come and look, you'll find your child here. Big shopping mall, right? Parents losing. How many of you, when you were a child, you lost your parent? Parents losing, children losing. And my child lost me. Samuel, my son, 21 years old, taller than me, but when he was, he's very active. Whenever we go out, he will touch here, touch there. You know, he'll be very curious, very excited about everything around him. And guess what? Then I will walk ahead, right? Walk in front of him, right? And then he'll be like, where is he again? You know, they'll look around, where is he? And there was one time shopping mall, I think somewhere in the east, I can't remember, is it East Point or whatever. Left side shops, right side shops, very exciting, a lot of people walking, and after a while I just walked slowly. I thought he would be next to me. After a while, where's my son again? Then I turned around and I saw him. Okay, he's there, you know. Looking left, looking right, you know, touching here, touching there. So I just waited, instead of going up and look for him and hold him, right? I just, everybody's walking in this direction anyway. So I just stood there, I just wait for him to come towards me. But suddenly I saw him grab somebody. And he looked up, and then the man looked down and realized, not my father. Panic. I saw his face panicking, lost, looking for daddy. And I was cool and calm. It's like, just keep walking, you will find me. And of course, I just waited a while more. Then suddenly he saw me. I was like, haha, you know. So I bent down, waiting for him to run towards me, which he did. He ran. I thought, you know, the movie type, right? Run together and hug, right? Guess what? He ran towards me. Instead of hugging me, he beat my chest. He said, you know what he said? You lost me. Then I was thinking, I didn't lose you. You lost me. Lost and found. You know, the Father never lost us. Never lose us. We lost him. We went astray. And he is always looking for us. Always looking for us. Waiting for us to just finally discover, this is not my daddy. Who is my daddy? Can you adjust the... Okay, let me... Yep, it's on. Okay, maybe help me to change the slide. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go out to search for the one that is lost? To be lost is very scary. Panic. The one who has gone astray, the one who needs to be found. I'm going to share with you from Luke 19, verse 1 to 10. There was a man who was lost. His name was Zacchaeus. He was looking for answers, looking for his daddy in heaven. Let me read the first 4 verses. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was. But being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed the sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. Let me explain these 4 verses first. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. I wasn't passing through this church. I was very intentional. I came here. I'm not going anywhere else. But Jesus was going somewhere else. He was just passing through this town called Jericho. And it so happened that a man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector and was wealthy. He has everything. He has, a lot of our friends, even some of us, we have all we need. But obviously there was something that was missing in his life. If he has everything that he needed, he has a big house, he has all the entertainment, he has all the smartphones and all the home entertainment, he would be staying at home. Why bother to go and squeeze among the crowd, cannot even have a seat, cannot have a place, and go and climb a tree, make a fool of himself? He wanted to see who Jesus was. He must have heard about this Jesus from his neighbors, from his tax collector friends, from his leaders, from his servants. I don't know. He must have heard something positive. If it's negative, he wouldn't be bothered. It must be positive. It's like, wow, you mean you were healed? You mean your eyes were open because of this man? You mean you found joy? You mean you have peace? That's what I need. I need what you have. And everybody is talking about Jesus. And Jesus was passing through and everybody wanted to see him. And Zacchaeus didn't want to miss out. He realized that maybe this man's going to give him something that he needed. All these years. There are many rich people in Singapore now. Some of them are our friends, our bosses. Do they have all that they need? I don't think so. I don't think so. We have something that they need. We have Jesus. So he wanted to see who Jesus was, so he climbed a tree and then, of course, and then the last part says, since Jesus was coming that way, it's like, did Jesus just walk past? Or was Jesus intentional? Was Zacchaeus looking for Jesus or was Jesus looking for Zacchaeus? That is an interesting question. Next slide. And verse 5 and 6, when Jesus reached that spot, reached that spot, he wasn't passing through. He was very intentional. I'm sure God the Father in heaven must have told him early in the morning when he was praying to the Father that today there's a man, his name is Zacchaeus. You will find him in Jericho. He will be up on the tree. When you reach that spot, you call him down. He needs salvation. He looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. One man welcoming Jesus, his whole household received the blessing. Isn't it wonderful? It's not just for one man, it's for the whole house. The whole house need him. My father may be very rich, but he didn't have Jesus. He needs Jesus. And when he brings Jesus home, all of us going to have Jesus in our household. Next slide. And what is a true encounter? All the people saw this, began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Of course, we are all sinners. All of us were sinners before we had Jesus. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. That was immediate transformation of his life. When we encounter Jesus, our life will never be the same again. Did he wait 1 month, 1 year later, then Zacchaeus changed? From a tax collector, very selfish, hoarding everything? No, immediately he changed. That is a true encounter. Sadly, I see a lot of Christians, 10 years, 20 years as a Christian, nothing changed. Still the same old guy. To me, that's not a real encounter. It was so sad. Some months back, I talked to a pastor. I talked about One for Jesus. He said, Jason, in my church, there are many Christians, but I think they are not saved yet. I think I need to preach to my own people before I ask my own people to go out to preach to the lost. Because a lot of Christians are still not transformed. But in this case, Zacchaeus was immediate transformation. He was ready to renounce his old life and to walk with Christ. Next slide. And it's so beautiful. At the end of the 10 verses, Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house. Other version in the Bible, today salvation has come into this household. And I encourage all of us, if you want our household to be safe, we transform. We need to follow Jesus. We need to renounce our past. We need to start a new life in order for a new life to come to our household. Zacchaeus transformed, welcomed Jesus, and guess what Jesus said? For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost. Jesus was looking for Zacchaeus. He came intentionally to seek and to save that which was lost. There are many people in our households are still lost. Our colleagues, our friends are still lost. You know, tell you a bit of my own story. I was lost. My parents raised 8 children. I was number 7. At the age of 18, thanks to my mom, sent me to a mission school. I never became a Christian, but memorized the Lord's Prayer, memorized 1 or 2 songs, Amazing Grace, assembly, say a prayer here and there, but never wanted to be a Christian. But by the time I came to 18 years old, I said 2 prayers. I was desperate because after 18, national service. After national service, got to work. What is my life going to be about? I don't know. I was getting very good grades. It's like I was happy, but yet I knew something was missing. And so the first prayer was, God, why do you put me here? God, I don't know who I was talking to. God, why do you put me here? The second prayer was, God, please give me a scholarship. I cannot afford to go to university, and God answered. I was in the national service sweeping the floor. Then the phone rang. The officer came out. Jason, you applied for scholarship, is it? Public Service Commission. Call you. Went to the office, answered. They said, we are going to offer you a scholarship, Australia. Pack up and go in 2 weeks' time. I was like, so fast. Disrupted, and so went there. I still remember at the airport, my dad said, no smoking, no drinking, no angmos, no womanizing, no drugs. Okay? I said, okay, Dad. That was the best advice my dad ever gave to me. My mom said, no angmo sin, no angmo ball. No foreigner God, no foreigner wives. Because the generation, you have foreign, Jesus, what God, yes, so, wu so, all the... So I went to Australia. I found my wife there. My wife Singaporean. 10 minutes from my house in Singapore. I never find her here. I had to go all the way to Australia to find her. She only stayed 10 minutes from my house in Singapore. And then I found Jesus there. Because when I asked God to give me a scholarship, I negotiated. I said, God, if you give me a scholarship, I will go to church. I didn't really go to church. I went to a Christian fellowship, students' fellowship. If any of you are students in campuses, in schools, tell you, that is a wonderful opportunity to share with the non-Christians. I was found because of my student friends. They look around. Who are the overseas students that come to Australia to study who are not yet Christians? They target me, man. He said, this one, Jason Wong, target him. But anyway, I already told God, I will go to church, but I joined them instead of going to church because this was more fun, young people. Went for the camp, 3 months later. Pressurizing, man. There were only 4 or 5 of us non-Christians. 40, 50 people were Christians, so they were all targeting. It's like, I can feel the pressure. It's like everybody looking at 4 or 5 of us. Whenever the speaker speaks, it's like, are they looking at me again? Of course, the final night altar call. I was under pressure, but a lot of my questions were answered already. I'm the type that very scientific. I ask a lot of questions. If God is real, why God suffering? If God is real, show himself to me. Prove himself to me. Show up, then I will believe. Everybody avoided me. They all scared of me. Final night, I only got 1 question left. My question to God was, if you're real, show yourself. Prove to me. Reveal yourself. Stand in front of me. I was sitting right at the back, something like that, right at the back, 40, 50 people at the back. And then this Angmo pastor preached a message about doubting Thomas. And then came to the passage. I've never read the Bible before. I was just listening to him. I don't even have a Bible, listening to him. And it's like everything he says is like targeting me, It's like, how does he know? I have this question in my head, answered. I have this question in my head, answered, So by the time he came to the point of doubting Thomas, he said, Jesus, Went through the wall, went through the door, went straight to Thomas, showed the scars and said, why do you doubt? Blessed are those who do not see and still believe. Blessed are those who do not see and yet believe. I was like, I want to see, right? It's like God slapping my face. Blessed are those who do not see and still believe. I was like, I was wrecked. Seated at the back during the altar call, I said, okay, who wants to believe? Come forward. I was imagining myself seated on the fence. Do I jump forward? Do I sit on the fence? Do I jump forward, sit on the fence? Then this guy, 1-year-old Christian, very joyful, very excited about Jesus, leaned towards me and said, Jason, don't sit on the fence lah. I was thinking, how does he know I'm sitting on the fence? They said, don't sit on the fence, you have nothing to lose, go forward. I said, true, nothing to lose, what? All these people don't even know me. I believe in Christian, I go forward, 1 week later, I come out. Nobody bother, right? This guy from Singapore, don't know. And at the same time, I was sitting next to the aisle and there was like something pulling me out. It was the Holy Spirit, of course, I couldn't understand then. It's like something pulling me and this guy was pushing me. So in the end, I took the first step. I stepped out of the fence, stepped down from the fence. I took the first step. Don't know what happened. Left leg, right leg, just automatically like that, moved to the front. I went to the front, I was crying, tearing, right? And then they have some seniors waiting for some of us to come forward, and then they're praying for us. So I asked the senior, I said, why am I crying? Why am I tearing? Then he said, Jesus touched you. I said, oh, okay. So I came back from summer holidays. My 2 sisters, my third sister and my second sister, of course, I told them first because my mom would scold me, right? So I told them first. And then my third sister said, hey, Jason, recently I also been going to church, my boyfriend, now her husband, my boyfriend brought me to church, And don't know why, during worship, I cry. Why? I said, because Jesus touched you. He said, oh, like that. Then what do I do next? He said, if the pastor next week altar call, you just walk down. And she became a Christian. And then my second sister, a few weeks later, she was telling me, my in-laws blame me. I said, blame you for what? 5 years, cannot get pregnant. Then I looked at her, I said, do you believe that Jesus can give you a baby? Then she looked back, don't know where the faith come from. She said, yeah, I believe. She was about to go for her second IVF. A few months later, I already went back to Australia. She sent me the letter and she said, I no longer need to go for IVF. I'm pregnant. In fact, her eldest daughter was the flower girl for my wedding. She has 3 children in the end. She herself is now an assistant pastor at the community hospital, preaching Christ to all the old people in the community hospital. Isn't God amazing? If God come to one person, the household. And of course, for me, my most important burden were for my parents, my mom, my dad. And when I was still studying in Australia, I remember I was praying, every day I was praying, for their salvation, First, of course, I prayed that my mom would not scold me for becoming a Christian, but praying for their salvation. And one night I had a dream. I dreamt that it was the old National Stadium, the big, old Kallang Stadium, and the wooden benches, right, if you remember. And there was somehow there was a rally, evangelistic rally, and there was an altar call. And then I turned, I looked at my mom. I said, would you want to go down? Want to go down? Then my mom stood up, walked towards me, and then she said, I will believe only if. And then I woke up. I was thinking, only if what? So I tried to go back and sleep, right, to get part 2. I will only believe if. If what? I need to know. Went back to sleep, no part 2. For years, I don't know only if what. And guess what? A few months later, I was still in Australia studying, and I received a letter from my home my sister wrote, because my parents can't write in English. My sister wrote in English and said, Mom had been unwell for a while. We didn't want to tell you because we didn't want you to worry. In those days, no WhatsApp, no Zoom, no nothing. It's all snail mail. Right? Whatever is written, take 4-5 days before you receive it. So they didn't tell me, for afraid that I will be worried, and said, Mom has a growth behind her eye, and it is growing. We thought she needed an operation, chop open the head and remove that growth. But fortunately, they didn't say thank God. Fortunately, second opinion, and this neurosurgeon said, don't have to open up the head, just tie the artery so that the oxygen in the blood will not flow to the growth and cause it to grow. So there was a minor operation, and thank God, the growth didn't grow. But at the same time, oxygen stopped going to the eye, and the eye started to die. So my mom started to lose that eye. So when I came home, by the time I finished my university degree, came home, and I target my mom. Mom, go church, go and be prayed, some healing, some healer, Then she said, come, let's go. She will be very excited. She wants to be healed, right? So I said, she will only believe if she's healed. So each time go, different churches, different speakers, and then she will go down, she will be prayed for, and then, this one on wheelchair stand up, this one, the ear pop open, can hear, and she nothing. And then she looked down, she said, Fan Chela, let's go home. Let's go home. It came to a point, Christmas rally, my own church was organizing something. I said, Mom, Christmas rally, let's go. She said, don't want. She wasn't interested. And then she was quite nice. She said, you bring your father. Maybe try to avoid me. But my target was my mom, not my dad. But anyway, okay, Dad, you want to go? Then my dad said, yeah, let's go. So brought him. I wasn't myself throughout the whole night at the big rally. I was just like thinking about, my mom is not here, And at the end, I wasn't even listening to the message. During the altar call, my dad turned towards me. I want to go down. I want to become a Christian. What? Serious? Okay, I brought him down. After the sinner's prayer, my dad said, son, don't tell your mother. I said, why? He said, your mom will not be happy because all the idol worship at home, I will be a secret Christian. Just give me a Bible. For several years, my dad was a secret Christian. Until I gave them money, I started working, so they travel, to nearby countries, holidays, they deserve it, they work so hard, raise 8 children. One time, they flew into Vietnam before they venture out to the region around the city to travel. They were supposed to be there for 1 week. That night, the first night, I received a call. My mom said, your dad don't know what happened, stomach painful, we're going to fly him back tomorrow. I prepared the ambulance, landed, went to SGH, operated on appendicitis. Even the doctor said, wow, fortunately, flu, low pressure, it can burst, Thank God it didn't burst. So that night I visited my dad. He was in pain. By then, my mom knew he was a Christian. So I said, Dad, you're in pain. My dad said, what do I do, son? I said, you pray lah, 叫耶穌啦, 叫耶穌, just call Jesus, heal me. 耶穌救我, 耶穌醫治我, Jesus heal me. I said, okay. That night, brought my mom home. And before my mom came out of the ward, it was a 4 or 6 man ward, I can't recall. My mom turned left and right and told the uncle, you watch over my husband, not allowed to come out of the bed. Must rest in bed. My mom very fierce one night. My mom said, you better do. So went home that night. Next day, evening, went to visit my dad. My dad was well, seated up, talking. My mom was next to him. And I walked forward. I said, wow, Dad, you okay already? So fast. Then my mom looked at my dad and said, you tell him what happened? You tell your son what happened? I said, Dad, what happened? Then my dad said, last night, after we left, he was in pain, lights were off. He saw a bright light because he was crying out, Jesus, heal me, Jesus, heal me. A bright light came in, a figure. He said, I call Jesus, then that one must be Jesus. Simple faith. 2 hands stretched forth, lay on his stomach. After that, he was healed. And then the bright light disappeared, the figure disappeared. And then my dad said, after I was healed, I wanted to go toilet because high tide. Wanted to get out of the bed, making a lot of noise. It was all dark. The uncle left and right woke up and said, Uncle, you're not supposed to call the nurse, And the nurse came and said, Uncle, you cannot come down. We bring you a urinal. My dad said, no, I'm healed. Jesus just appeared to me, I'm healed. The nurse was shocked. The nurse brought him to the toilet. Next day, morning, my mom, early in the morning, 7 a.m., went to see him while he was next to his bed, changing pajamas. While my mom was looking at the uncle left and right and said, how come you allow my husband stand up? My mom ran straight to my dad and said, you better lie down. And my dad said, I'm healed. Jesus healed me. Of course, my mom at that time didn't even know Jesus, right? My mom scolded my dad. And then my dad reply was, we married for so many years. You mean I lie, you cannot tell? I tell the truth, you cannot tell. And my mom saw that my dad was healed. And of course, after I heard this testimony, I looked at my mom and said, Mom, want to go church? Right? I will only believe if my husband is healed, maybe. That's the second part. So I looked at my mom said, go church for what? Not that one, then what? 1 week later, my brother had meningitis. The most precious son, because the youngest, was hospitalized. A few months before, his friend had meningitis and died. This time, my brother had it. My mom was panicking. So when I went to visit my brother that evening, my mom took me out of the ward outside, and then she said, very quietly, she said, your brother's friend came with all the talisman. They said some temple in Bangkok. Very, very effective, very ling one. Asked me to put under the pillow, under the bed of your brother's head, and then he'll be okay after that. What do you think? Then I look at my mom, cannot. Of course cannot. Then my mom said, okay, I trust you. Why? Because my dad was healed, right? Just 1 week before. So my mom looked at me and said, you ask your church friends to pray for your brother. I will return this to his friends. That night, I dare not go home. If something happened to my brother, I would be in trouble. You know, my brother was tied down with strings and threads, and because of meningitis, he couldn't recognize anybody. He was confused, he was delirious, and he was tied down with threads or strings. That night, I just saw his silhouette in the dark, moving up and down, struggling. I was just praying in tongues, praying. Thank God, a few days later, my brother was discharged. And that was when my mom just came up to me and said, okay, this weekend, bring your father and me to church. Years ago, when I heard God in the dream, I will only believe if what? If my youngest son was healed. And it did happen years later. That was the part 2. So that weekend, brought my mom to church, my dad to church, went to the Mandarin Cantonese service. We were early because I wanted to show them around. And then my mom walked in, looked at the place, and then suddenly she saw another group of people coming in. They were also early. And then my mom turned to me and said, that's my old neighbor. And the old neighbor saw her. And they started to talk. And then my mom turned to me and said, you can go home already. I said, what do you mean? I said, I have friends now. You can go home. First time attending church. And then after service, I went to fetch them. My mom said, Long Zhong Gao Dim Sai. Everything taken care of. I said, Mat Ye Gao Dim Sai? What is taken care of? She said, next week the pastor is going to come with all my new friends to remove all the idols. I waited 20 over years. I prayed for 20 over years. A few years ago, about 10 years ago now. Of course, before that, my mom passed away, 70 plus. My dad passed away, 87 years old. Lung cancer, 2 months, lasted only 2 months. But during the 2 months, he saw angels, he was brought to heaven, he had buffet in heaven. He cannot even eat on earth, but he had buffet in heaven, and he was telling me all those wonderful, powerful testimonies. And my last trip to the oncologist, a family friend from my previous church before, she looked at my dad and said, Uncle, I've tried everything already. There's nothing else I can do for you. And my dad looked at her. In fact, my dad comforted the oncologist. It's okay. Jesus is waiting for me. I've been to heaven and come back. I'm ready to go. And the oncologist looked at my dad. In fact, patients were waiting outside. She said, you tell me more. And after my dad told her his whole testimony, the oncologist said, Uncle, can I invite you to share with all my other patients? Can? They have medicine, but they need Jesus. They need to hear what you have just said. And 1 week later, in a big bungalow, 40 people, my dad shared his testimony. He could hardly walk, could hardly breathe because of lung cancer. I have to prop him up at the age of 87, about to die. He shared his testimony at the end, 2 salvations. And then one pastor from Chinatown came up to me and said, can I invite your father to come and share in my church in Chinatown? A lot of old people, they need to hear this. And then I said, you ask my father lah. And then pastor went to my father and asked, Uncle, can I invite you to, no, share the same thing, come to my church. And then my father said, if I'm still alive, I will go. Of course, my dad had gone to heaven. In fact, it was Easter weekend. Beautiful resurrection on the other side of heaven. 87. If any one of us think that we are too old to evangelize, my dad was 87. He had lung cancer. He knew he was about to die. He went all out to evangelize. Today, salvation has come to this house. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost. Next slide. When Jesus reached that spot, I think there are many people who are waiting. They have everything, but they are waiting at that spot. It could be a spot at home, our family member. It could be our office in the workstation next to us. It could be a classmate seated just 3 seats away from us. At that spot, they are waiting. They are waiting. They have everything except Jesus. Who is going to go? Next slide. As the Father has sent me. Jesus was sent by the Father to go to that spot. And then one whole household was saved. When I went to Australia, Jesus found me at that spot. And I brought Jesus home with me. I pray, even as you start One for Jesus, even to start your 40 days, the Father will send you to those who are waiting at that spot. They have everything except Jesus. Next slide. One for Jesus. One for Jesus. You know, early this year, I shared with a group of fathers from my church. And one of them sent me this testimony last week. Very encouraging. Early in the year, he heard the message. He said, your message about One for Jesus certainly resonated with me. I must confess that it's been years, actually decades, with an S, since I was involved in leading anyone to Christ. That means for at least 20, 30 years, saw no salvation. So I did pray to God to open doors and for myself to be ready. On 6th of July, my ex-cell leader contacted my wife and said she heard God telling her to get Luke, which is this father, to see her younger brother. So the ex-cell leader wanted Luke to see her younger brother, called Jerry, 63 years old, who was dying of pancreatic cancer. I was not sure whether I was the right Luke that God spoke to her, but I was available. As I learned that Jerry used to be from ACS primary school, I felt that it would be best to have an ex-ACS person to be present to bridge the gap. So he got another father who happened to be from ACS primary school, and both of them went with a sister to visit Jerry. Prior to our visit, the sister had been trying many times to share Jesus with the brother, but he would always be uncommitted. But on that day, they started with some small talk, and then they shared with Jerry about life after death, and then asked him if he would accept Jesus in his life. He did not hesitate to say yes. And then, 3 of them led this brother to the Lord. And from July to September, Luke couldn't visit anymore because his health was deteriorating. He was just sending messages, sending video testimonies, sending Bible verses, sending songs. And on 21st September, Jerry passed on. There are some who cannot wait. They have very little time left. Unless we go, they will not know. Next slide. You know, last week, your launch is supposed to be last week. Right? But then this week I was supposed to be with Bethel Assembly, which is a good friend. So, of course, when Pastor Lawrence said that, you're going to shift your launch to this week. So I said, I'm already booked by Bethel. You know? Then, of course, he said, no problem, my old friend. So they talked and then decided to switch. So last week I was at Bethel. I preached about this. It only takes a spark. And at the end, the service pastor, Pastor Amy, sent this message. A member came to me after service. She said that during worship, she saw a vision of a hand. So before I even speak about it only takes a spark, One for Jesus message, she already, during the worship time, saw a vision of a hand moving across a field of wheat, touching every head of wheat. She did not understand much till she shared the word, and it all made sense. Till I shared the word, all made sense. Just to let you know, so that you can be encouraged too. The harvest, just now you talk about the harvest. Do you know this was last Sunday? But 2 days before Sunday, on a Friday, I was reading the papers, and guess what I saw? Next slide. This was Friday, October 22nd. Golden harvest. This was one part in China whereby 7 years of harvest. I was like, look at the people, they are like just touching every wheat, moving across the wheat fields. I'm so encouraged. Any more slides? I'm going to release this word to you now. During the worship, I asked God, why this church, Lord? Why this church that's going to launch, even before other churches, even before the official launch on 1st of December? And the Lord said, because the new horizon. the sun is rising. Not the sun, but the sun. The sun is rising again over Singapore. Jesus himself is going to rise again. And guess what? If you are, we always say the east will see the sun first, right? New horizon, you're going to see the sunrise first. You are privileged to see the sunrise first. That's why you are moving ahead of everybody. The sun is going to rise again. And as I was just praying, I was just shaking, I was just tearing. And the Lord said, Zacchaeus, the rich man, wealthy. He said, Singapore, you are wealthy. Singaporeans, you are wealthy, but you do not have Jesus. And it's like God saying, Singapore, you come down. Come down from your number 2 ranking, number 1 ranking. You come down. You come down, and I will come into your house. I will come into your nation. One nation for Jesus. Not just one, but one household for Jesus. Maybe it's one classroom for Jesus. Maybe one office for Jesus. Maybe one industry, one sector for Jesus. I don't know, but the Lord is speaking. The Lord is speaking. So I bless you. I bless you. May the sun rise. May Jesus resurrect again. May those who are rich but not have Jesus, may they come to know him and to bring him home. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Yeah. Yes.